as a nameless victim for 14 years.
A murdered mother found in a shallow grave at Lake Thunderbird.
The only clue to her identity, a tattoo.
But after a break in the case, her story is now coming together.
Our licensed investigator, Lisa Monahan, is pursuing new leads in tonight's Deadline.
In this secluded area of Lake Thunderbird, paths seldom cross. Few venture into the woods. And if they do, it's in search of shoreline. A place to lure something to the surface. But on this occasion, fishermen became caught up in something else completely. A terrible secret that someone had tried to bury months earlier. Not in Thunderbird's murky water, but in a shallow grave.
A Sunday morning, August 31st, 2008, 4 men were wrapping up a fishing trip, and one of them stopped along the way off a beaten path.
He discovered what was left of a woman's body, partially buried in this remote area of Lake Thunderbird State Park.
Let us know if you'll be out on that. Okay. Your location again.
The men notified a park ranger who called the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation to the scene at 120th and Alameda.
It was somewhere where someone would have had time and privacy to hide this woman's body.
From the looks of it, investigators believe she'd been there a while, 3 months, if not more.
Most of her body was just reduced to skeletal remains.
The fishermen had uncovered a murder. That investigators were sure of. But how she was killed and who she was? Those questions would be much harder to answer. They didn't have much to go on. Just a tattoo found on the small of her back. The only skin preserved because of how the killer positioned the body in the grave. The coroner believed the victim was Native American, about 5'5", in her 30s or 40s, and a mother. Hopefully her child or a relative would recognize the tattoo.
It's a sunburst, and so it's a rather large tattoo. It has a sun and some additional detailing around it.
Investigators shared pictures of it, but no one came forward. So the OSBI pored over reports of missing women. A forensic artist used an X-ray of her skull to try and recreate the victim's face, then sent it around to the media, and still nothing. They even added her to the deck of cold case playing cards they distribute to prisoners in Oklahoma, but to no avail. Investigators were frustrated.
It is really difficult to do justice for a victim when we can't identify the person. It's difficult to speculate on the mechanics of what happened.
Months turned into years, and more than a decade later, the woman remained nameless. In 2021, Special Agent Andy Hamilton picked up the trail again, and utilizing advancements in forensic technology, provided the media with a sketch of the woman and the promise of genetic genealogy testing. A year later, a break in the case.
The remains of a cold case victim have been identified 14 years after her death. Agents say genetic genealogy was used to identify Angela Mason, fisherman.
But OSBI then hit the mute button, citing state law that prohibits them from sharing details in an ongoing investigation. Turns out, no one ever reported Angela Mason missing, and OSBI had only given a vague timeline of her disappearance. Last seen in Moore, Oklahoma in spring 2008. We'd have to try and fill in the gaps on our own, but at least with a name, we could start to tell her story. She went by Angela Richards as a student at Putnam City West High School. Classmates remember her as friendly, but quiet. By age 17 in 2000, she was pregnant, expecting what would be the first of 4 children.
She was a beautiful mom. And
Several months into motherhood, Angela, still a child herself, made the decision to give the baby up for adoption.
And I actually got to see pictures of her while she was pregnant with me.
We tracked down Angela's firstborn, Reagan Colley.
I'd always had a desire to find her.
She tried to, with no luck. Most of what she knew about her biological mother came from notes found in a baby book.
Her keeping that baby book showed, like, she did care for me, and she did enjoy the process of having me, but she had to make the difficult decision to give me up.
Angela kept visitation rights and remained a part of Reagan's life. Until someone took hers. But Reagan wouldn't learn her mother was killed for nearly 15 years. Instead, she anguished over unsettling questions raised by Angela's family, including whether Angela had simply abandoned her.
So I kind of wanted to find her to answer those questions.
She also wanted answers to the bigger questions: who and why?
I want to be able to look at the person who did it and try to figure out, like, why did you feel the need to do this?
Our search for possible suspects and motives in this case led us from Oklahoma to a small town in Florida. What we found there, plus new clues in part 2 of this investigation, tomorrow night at 10. On Deadline, Lisa Monahan, Oklahoma's own News 9.